When we came back from our honeymoon, I almost could not believe what I was seeing. My wife's parents had gone ahead and redone our entire living room. New curtains, a brand new couch, and smack in the middle of it all, a huge portrait of them hung right over the fireplace. My wife told me they just wanted to do something nice for us. I said, well, they are about to get a surprise too, because all this stuff is headed straight to the garage. We had just gotten back from 2 wonderful weeks in Maui, soaking up the sun and living out the first days of being married. It was everything we needed after the craziness of planning the wedding. We were excited to finally settle into our little home back in Portland, Oregon, and get on with life. But the second we pulled into the driveway, I could tell something was not right. The curtains in the front window were different. The soft cream ones we had picked out so carefully were gone. Instead, there were these heavy maroon drapes that looked like they belonged in some old medieval castle. I glanced over at my wife. She did not seem too surprised. "Did you see the curtains?" I asked. "Oh, yeah," she said like it was nothing. "My folks said they wanted to give us a surprise." My stomach dropped. I hurried inside, and what I saw made me want to turn around and go right back to Maui. The modern couch we had worked so hard to save up for was gone, replaced with this giant flowery monstrosity. The simple coffee table we loved had been swapped out for some flashy glass thing trimmed with fake gold. And the cherry on top? That massive portrait of my in-laws glaring down from above the fireplace. I was furious. "Ethan, this is our home," I said, trying not to lose it. "They had no business changing it without asking." He shifted awkwardly. "They just wanted to do something nice for us," he mumbled. "Nice?" I said. "This feels more like a hostile takeover." I stormed out to the garage, grabbed some moving boxes, and started packing all their new stuff up. Ethan stood there, watching, while I carefully took down the portrait and slid it into a box. I even labeled it, "Return to Senders." The next morning, I got on the phone. "Hi, this is Rachel," I said as politely as I could manage. "I appreciate the thought you put into the surprise, but we have decided to go back to our own furniture and decorations. Everything is boxed up in the garage, ready for you to pick up." There was a long pause on the other end. "Well, we were only trying to help," his mother said, her voice tight. "I understand," I replied calmly. "But it is important for us to create our home together." A few days later, they came by to get their things. It was quiet and tense, and nobody said much. After that, we pretty much acted like it never happened. Later, Ethan and I sat down and had a long talk. We agreed that we needed to set some clear rules about family boundaries. Ethan admitted he should have talked to me before letting them make changes. We promised to back each other up from now on when it came to our families. A few weeks after that, Ethan's parents invited us over for dinner. They apologized for overstepping and said they would respect our home in the future. It felt like a good first step. We were working on rebuilding trust, and it seemed like things might finally settle down. I really thought that would be the end of it. Honestly, I did. After I called them and told them their stuff was waiting in the garage, they came, picked it up, and left. No yelling, no big argument. Just a weird, silent exchange, and then it was done. Or so I thought. Turns out, I was way off. About 2 weeks after the whole living room mess, little things started happening. Small at first. We would come home and find plates of baked goods sitting on the porch. Homemade cookies, banana bread, little notes that said things like, "Hope you are enjoying the peace and quiet," or, "Just wanted to sweeten your new life a little." At first, I told myself not to read too much into it. Maybe it was just them trying to make peace. But then it got worse. One afternoon, I went out to check the mailbox, and there it was, a flyer for a tacky old furniture store, the kind that sells nothing but floral couches and gold-trimmed tables. Scrawled across the top in big red marker were the words, "Now this is what a real home looks like." It did not take a detective to figure out who had sent it. Meanwhile, Ethan started acting strange. He was not sleeping well. Every time I brought up the notes or the cookies, he got defensive. One time, when I casually asked if he had talked to his mother recently, he snapped, "Why do you always think it is them?" He never used to talk to me like that. One evening, I found him sitting alone in the living room, staring up at the empty space above the fireplace, the spot where the portrait used to hang. "Do you miss it?" I asked him. He stayed quiet for a long moment. Then finally, he said, "They just wanted to feel like they belonged." I did not say a word back. But deep down, something inside me broke a little. And then came the real shocker. I had to make a quick trip to the grocery store one night. Halfway there, I realized I had forgotten my wallet, so I turned around and headed back home. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a car parked a few houses down the street. It was Ethan's father's car. I got out quietly and walked into the house. The place was silent, no television, no music. I could hear soft voices coming from the kitchen. I crept closer and stopped behind the wall in the hallway. It was Ethan, talking with his mother. "Just give us a little more time," she was saying. "She will come around. You know how girls are." I heard Ethan let out a heavy sigh. "She is not wrong, Mom. It was too much. But she will forgive you. She always does." Then his mother said something that made my skin crawl. "But remember, this is our family home now, too. Let me make one thing clear, Ethan and I bought that house ourselves. With our own money. No help from his family or mine. It was ours." So hearing her call it our home made my blood run cold. When I stepped into the kitchen, they both snapped their mouths shut. His mom turned toward me with a big, fake smile. "Oh, Rachel, we were just chatting a little," she said, like everything was perfectly normal. I did not say a word. I just turned around and walked straight back out the door. Ethan chased after me, looking like he had just gotten caught red-handed. "It is not what it looked like," he said quickly. I spun around and looked him dead in the eye. "Then tell me, Ethan. What exactly was it?" He stumbled over his words. Could not get anything out. That was when I knew something way deeper was happening. That night, while Ethan was asleep, I went over to the drawer where we kept our spare keys. One was missing. The emergency key we kept hidden way in the back, for when we locked ourselves out, was gone. I had no idea when they took it, but it was obvious now that they had been letting themselves in whenever they wanted. Suddenly, the cookies, the cards, even that weird flyer, all of it made sense. I did not sleep a wink that night. The next morning, I told Ethan what I had found. He looked like he had seen a ghost. But then he said something I never saw coming. "I gave it to them," he said quietly. "Just in case." My mouth went bone dry. "You what?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. "I thought it would be smart," he said. "You know, if something ever happened and we needed help." "Help with what, Ethan?" I asked. "A surprise home makeover? An emergency baking session?" He had no answer. That same day, I called off work, had the locks changed, and set up a camera right above the front door. When I told Ethan what I had done, he said I was being dramatic. I told him I was just being smart and careful. He did not say another word to me for the rest of the day. Later that night, his phone lit up with a message. I saw the name flash on the screen. It was his mother. The message read, "We saw the camera." That is very hurtful. They had seen it. Which meant they had been back at our house again. Without letting us know. That was the moment I knew for sure, we were in a war. Not a loud, screaming kind of war. No, this was a cold, fake smiling, absolutely insane kind of family war. And I was not about to lose. After changing the locks and putting up the camera, things started getting even weirder. One night, I was going through the security footage, just to make sure everything was normal, when I caught something I never expected. The camera showed more than just a casual visit. It caught a shadowy figure unlocking our door with a key. At first, I figured it was one of Ethan's parents sneaking in again. But when I slowed down the video, the face was someone I did not recognize. I rewound it a few times, trying to catch a better look. The only clear thing I could see was a hand, and on that hand was a big, fancy ring. It looked expensive, with what seemed like a family crest carved into it. The next morning, I confronted Ethan about it. He stumbled over his words. "I do not know who that is," he mumbled. But the look in his eyes told me a different story, fear mixed with guilt. Later on, while Ethan was in the shower, I made a decision. I went into his office and started searching. Underneath his desk, hidden in a secret drawer, I found something that made my stomach twist. There were photographs of me, of our house, and even financial papers I had never seen before. Tucked among the papers was a thick envelope, marked with the words, Plan B. Inside were handwritten notes talking about keeping the house secure and protecting the family legacy. I felt sick. This was bigger than just his parents snooping around. Something much larger was happening behind my back. That evening, I sat Ethan down at the kitchen table. I slapped the envelope on the table in front of him. "Who is the man on the footage? And what the hell is this?" I demanded. He hesitated for a long time before finally letting out a heavy sigh. "There is something you need to know, Rachel," he said. "My family, they are not just obsessed with decorating or visiting. They have been keeping tabs on us. For a while." I stared at him, not sure if I was angry, scared, or both. "I let it happen," he admitted. "I thought if I kept them happy, it would keep the peace, and protect the legacy." "Legacy?" I repeated, my voice rising with confusion and fury. Ethan could not even look at me. He just shook his head and mumbled, "I thought it was the right thing to do." Right or wrong, it felt like a knife in my back. And it only got worse from there. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. I began getting anonymous emails. Some warned me to stay in my lane and remember who you married. One even said, "The key is not just a tool. It is a symbol." I showed every single message to Ethan. He only looked more and more troubled and kept saying, "I will handle it." But how could he fix something he had secretly helped create? Piece by piece, I started to put it all together. Ethan's family was not just protective. They were controlling. They had a real interest in the house, not just because it was a home, but because it was tied to something much bigger. The Plan B envelope hinted at it. A hidden basement storage area, known only to certain family members. Word was, it held old documents and valuable items tied to some ancient property deal. Something that had to do with the family's business empire, passed down for generations. The tension only got worse. One evening, as I sat in the living room trying to process everything, I heard a soft knock at the door. I peered through the peephole, and there he was. The same stranger from the security footage. I did not open the door all the way. Just cracked it enough to see what he wanted. The man held out a thick envelope. On the front, in shaky handwriting, it said, "For Rachel." I took it and shut the door fast. Inside was a handwritten note that made my hands tremble. "I know what you do not," it read. "The legacy you trust is built on lies. Look in the basement, or lose everything." My heart felt like it was about to explode. Was this a warning? Or was it a plea for help? Either way, it pointed straight to the basement. I knew if I was ever going to get answers, I would have to dig them up myself. Meanwhile, I started noticing how people in town acted differently around us. There were whispered conversations that stopped the second we walked by. An old friend I had known for years dropped by unexpectedly, pulling me aside with a nervous look. "Be careful, Rachel," she whispered. "Not everyone here is who they pretend to be." I could not tell if it was just fear of our family drama leaking out, or if something more dangerous was going on. Either way, it was clear. The house that once felt like our safe place now felt like a cage. I decided it was time to dig into that basement Ethan's envelope had mentioned. Even though he swore up and down he did not know anything more, I could tell he was holding back something important. My head was spinning with questions. What was hidden down there? What part of our life was so valuable that Ethan would let his family sneak into our home like that? And who the heck was that stranger with the fancy ring? I grabbed a flashlight and the spare set of keys and made up my mind to find out for myself. My heart was pounding like crazy as I crept down the old wooden stairs. The basement smelled like dust, mildew, and old memories that had been locked away for too long. Every step I took made a hollow echo. It felt like something in the dark was watching me. In a locked corner of the basement, I found a heavy metal cabinet. Inside were stacks of files, old bank statements, and even an ancient-looking map of our neighborhood. Several spots were circled on the map. One in particular caught my eye. It had the same family crest I had seen on that mysterious ring. The spot was marked near an abandoned warehouse way out on the edge of town. Holding that map in my shaking hands, I started putting it together. Was this the big secret behind the so-called legacy Ethan kept talking about? And why was it hidden right under our feet? When I finally went back upstairs, I knew deep down this was not just about overbearing in-laws. This was a full-blown operation. Every little thing, the weird redecorating, the missing spare key, even the cookies and cards, it was all part of a bigger plan. Ethan's family had been guarding something important. And now I was right in the middle of it. One thing was crystal clear. I could not trust anyone completely anymore. Not even Ethan. If I wanted to protect our home and our future, I had to uncover every last secret, no matter what it cost me. Over the next few days, I started piecing everything together. That old map was not just some dusty heirloom. It was a blueprint, a roadmap to land deals, property swaps, and shady money trails that went back generations. Turns out, Ethan's family had been sitting on a gold mine of land in Portland for years. Some of it was hidden under fake names. And a lot of the paperwork had somehow ended up locked away in our basement. We were talking about millions of dollars, maybe even more. And that abandoned warehouse? It used to belong to Ethan's grandfather. Now, it looked like somebody, maybe Ethan, maybe his family, was trying to quietly shift ownership before the city's next big development boom. And if I am being honest with you, I should have seen it coming. Back when we bought the house, Ethan pushed real hard to keep the deed in his name only. It will just be easier, he told me at the time. I was busy planning our wedding and trusted him without thinking twice. That was my mistake. I trusted too much. And now I had to find a way to fix it. I did not tell Ethan what I had found. Not yet. Instead, I made copies of everything, the map, the files, even the creepy note from the man with the ring. Then I met with a lawyer. Someone who knew all about land disputes and real estate fraud. I did not say much. I just handed him the stack of papers. His eyes got wide as he flipped through them. "This is huge," he said. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "Absolutely," I told him. "I want to burn it all down." That night, I acted like nothing was wrong. We had dinner. We watched some old Netflix show. I kissed Ethan on the cheek like I always did before bed. But inside, I was burning up. The next morning, I stood in front of him and laid it all out. "I know everything," I said. "The house. The basement. The warehouse. The fake names. The missing key. I know what you have been hiding from me." He froze right where he stood. "You do not understand," he started to say. "No," I snapped at him. "You are the one who does not get it. You dragged me into this whole mess. You let your family spy on me. You let them treat our marriage like it was just another business deal." He looked like he wanted to argue, but deep down he knew he could not. "They were going to cut me off," he said quietly. "My parents. They told me if I did not get my hands on those documents, if I did not keep you distracted, they would ruin me." I let out a bitter laugh. "So you sold me out just to hang on to your piece of the fortune?" He could not even bring himself to answer. I laid it out plain and simple. "You have two choices. You come clean. You give up any claim you have to this house. Or I go public. I will take all of this to court, to the news, to anyone willing to listen. He looked at me like I had just knocked the wind out of him. You would not dare, he said. I already did, I said. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. Nothing. That same afternoon, I made sure everything was filed. My name was added to the deed of the house. His name was taken off. Our bank accounts were split up for good. And every piece of evidence, the maps, the papers, all of it, was turned over to the city's property board. By the end of the week, the city announced an official investigation into the warehouse deals. Everything Ethan's family had spent years trying to hide was dragged right out into the open. The land they had been clinging to for generations? Gone. Their so-called legacy? Reduced to ashes. Greed, secrets, backdoor deals, all of it exposed for everyone to see. And Ethan? He packed up a bag and left. Walked out without even bothering to say goodbye. I heard from a mutual friend that he is staying with his parents now. Apparently, they are blaming me for everything. Good. Let them. They wanted a legacy so badly. Well, I gave them a legend. They thought they could take over my living room. Instead, I took down their entire empire. I am not going to lie, I made mistakes too. I trusted too easily. I turned a blind eye when I should have asked more questions. But I learned. Now, when you walk into that living room, you will not see the old portrait anymore. It is gone. In its place, there is a mirror. So every single day, I remember the face of the person who fought back. The person who took it all back. Me.